Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining. My name is Berit and today it's time for another wrap-up of my last 2 months of reading for May and June. The last 2 months were pretty stressful for me, so I didn't read a whole lot. We have 5 books on the list, well, kind of 5.5, but let's take a look. The first book that I finished in May was The Relic by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. They are an author duo and they have written a lot of books together. I think this was their very first one. It's from the 90s. I've made a video about this book, but very shortly, this is a kind of natural history, evolution, biology themed thriller with a dash of supernatural stuff in it. It mostly takes place at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and it tells the story of, let's say, the consequences of an expedition into South America, into the rainforest, that has terribly gone wrong, and that expedition kind of has brought back something to New York, to the history that now goes around murdering people. And our protagonist, Margot Green, who is a PhD student at the museum, she has to find out what it is together with Special Agent Aloysius Pendergast from the FBI and also police officer or lieutenant or something, Vincent D'Agosta. So those 3 are kind of the trio that you're following here. I really like this book. It's a well-paced thriller, I'd say. I really liked our 3 protagonists. I think it was well written and some moments in this book were pretty scary, I think. So if you're up for a kind of museum themed thriller, if you want to know what happens at the Museum of Natural History when the lights turn out in the 90s, then I would recommend you to read this one. My first book of May. After that, I read the first volume of a new comic book series here in Norway entitled Mørkalven, that translates to Dark Elf. I would usually mention this when I read the whole series, but so far only the first volume has been published, so I'm mentioning it now. And this is a very promising first volume. It tells the story of the last dark elf who is still alive. He lives together with all the white elves. And it's a story about him. I, of course, kind of forgot his name. Sorry about that. But it's a story about him and his family and finding his place in life and growing up and living in a land that is pretty hostile towards you because they have quite some racism against dark elves, you could say. And yeah, we'll see where the story goes. I like the setting. It's set in a fantasy world, of course, amongst elves and stuff, but there are also humans. And they all live in different countries, and the countries' names are taken from the colors of a card deck. So the white elves live in clover, and the humans, for example, live in hearts. And that was something that I also really liked. I also like the style of the comic book. It is colored, and it looks very near an anime series, which I enjoyed quite a bit. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. I think the author is working on the second volume at the moment, so hopefully that will come out relatively soon. After that, I read Gyo by Junji Ito. This is the first manga that I read by Junji Ito. He's been on my radar for a while now, but I never could decide which one to read, so now I read Gyo, and this is the story of Tadashi and Kaori. They take a vacation on Okinawa in the beginning of this manga, and what happens there is that fish start to invade the land. Fish with very strange looking legs start to invade the land, and what is more is that they also bring a super horrible stench with them. They smell rotten, they smell bad, and well, they kind of pollute the air with their stench, and they start invading the land, and more fish come. And Kaori and Tadashi, they go back home eventually. They go back home to Tokyo, I think. But the thing is that the invasion of these strangely legged fish that doesn't stop. That actually gets worse and worse. So yeah, the situation basically escalates more and more. I don't want to say much more about the plot because I feel like it would be a spoiler. But yeah, to be honest, this was kind of disturbing to read. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it was interesting because it was my first horror manga, I guess. And the plot kind of developed differently from what I thought, because I thought this would be a lot about, now we're gonna find out what happened and we're gonna try to find a solution for what happened, but this is just straight on weird, absurd and gory and yucky things happen, and it's just madness, kind of. I think I enjoyed this, but I also think I need to digest it more, although it's been a few days since I finished this book. But yeah, it has an interesting art style to it because it feels both futuristic and retro in a way. And I really enjoyed that. And I also think it was interesting to read something that was so different as a manga. So we'll see whether I will read more stuff by Junji Ito. Now I think I have kind of an impression of what he does and what his works are like. So that was interesting and kind of disturbing, to be honest, but interestingly so. The fourth book that I finished in June was The House of 100 Whispers by Graham Masterton, which I read as an ebook. This is a horror novel, and this is also a novel that we kind of read together with everybody who wanted to. So I'm not gonna say much about it because I actually made like 2.5 videos just about that book. But yeah, this is basically a haunted house story taking place on the Dartmoor in England. It's about 3 siblings who come to the house where they grew up, which is called All Hallows Hall, because their father died, and now they have to, you know, get to know what it says in the will, and they have to decide what to do with the house. And what happens is that the son of one of the 3 siblings, Timmy, who is 5 years old, he disappears. And the strange thing about that is that he disappears from inside the house. So now the family kind of tries to find out what happens, what has happened to Timmy. And yeah, they uncover quite some secrets about this house, and it is pretty scary. I like the atmosphere. I think it was paced well. I like that it was kind of anchored in the Dartmoor with some of the things that you find out. And yeah, I got scared, which was kind of what I was wanting from this book. So yeah, that was quite a fun read. And the last book that I finished this month was This Was Our Pact by Ryan Andrews, a graphic novel. So when I checked in the bookstores here, it said this is for readers ages 8 and up. I am and up. And this is a story about friendship. It takes place in a kind of, how do you say, like, I would say magical realism slash a little more than just magical realism. In that kind of world anyway. In the beginning of the book, the whole town has the Equinox Festival where they put a bunch of lanterns into the river, and then they never know where the lanterns go. Legend has it that the lanterns go up into the sky and they fly into the Milky Way as stars. But a few boys want to find out whether that's actually true. So they start to follow the lanterns, and they have the Pact, which says nobody turns around, and something else, another rule that I of course forgot now. But anyway, almost all the boys kind of turn around in the beginning except for 2. And it's pretty much about their journey, about how they try to find the lanterns, or well, how they try to follow the lanterns, that is, and try to find out what happens. And they have a few strange encounters on the way with different people and different animals. And yeah, this is a quite wholesome book I would say, about friendship and about this world where they live. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a very relaxing read. I really like the artwork here, and yeah, if you're looking for a cozy tale about friendship, I would absolutely recommend it. It gave me kind of almost a bit Studio Ghibli vibes, but not because of the artwork, because of the story. I would say the artwork is quite different, but the story is kind of like, it would fit into a film by that studio, I think. So yeah, This Was Our Pact was the last book that I finished. And then I also want to address a book that I officially am giving up on now. I don't often talk about books that I don't finish. I don't think I have ever talked about a book I didn't finish here, because this doesn't happen that often. Because usually when I start a book and I find out that, nah, I'm not gonna finish this one, that usually happens in the first few chapters. And then I don't really want to bother talking about it, because if it wasn't for me, meh, that's okay. And I also usually forget a lot very fast when I don't finish reading books. I mean, I also forget the names of protagonists of books that I did finish, so I don't know. But in this case, I've read like 260 pages of almost 600, so I've almost read half of the book. But now I'm giving up on it, because it's not because the book is bad. I want to stress that. This is a book that I think has won prizes, and it's very popular in Germany. I think it will be translated into English, but anyway, it's not for me, not now, even though I know that this is a good book. But it's not for me and not for now. And that is Dunkelblum by Eva Menasse. I think this will be translated as Darkenbloom, but I don't know when it will be published. But I did read that this will be translated. This is the story of a small town in Austria where at the end of the 1980s, some people start to uncover some dirty secrets in this town and about the people living there. And those secrets are from around 1945. So we're talking crimes and things that never got uncovered from the end of World War II. To be more specific, this is mostly about uncovering the fact that a massacre has taken place in that town towards the end of the war, but nobody is able to find the grave of the, I don't remember how many people, more than 100 I think, that apparently have been killed in or near this town where this takes place. This is based on historical events, and this is written very, very well. This is kind of like a portrait of society, you could say. And so far, in the first 260 pages, there isn't too much of a plot, because this is about getting to know the people there, the town, and kind of immersing yourself into the small town life in this Austrian town, in this village. But yeah, this is a very good book, but it's not for me, not for now. And this, you know, it has been sitting on my shelf for months now without reading on. I borrowed it from the library here. And you know what? I will bring it back on Monday. I will not continue reading this now. This is a good book, but it's not for me, not for now. So yeah, those were the 5.5-ish books that I read in the last 2 months. Let me know what you read, what was your favorite book lately. I guess we'll see what July and August will bring in terms of reading. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and maybe I'll see you in the next one. Bye.